And we're back, and we just finished watching 2011's The Cabin in the Woods, directed by Drew Goddard. It tells the story of 5 friends who are looking to just do some R&R on a weekend in a cabin in the woods, and things go horribly wrong, horribly fast. What did you think?
I love this movie. I remember seeing it way back when it first came out, and it was just such a fun take on the entire genre of American slasher horror films, because they really dissect and get down into
like the lore behind some of that stuff,
of like how all of those things work, like the archetypes of each of the characters, and then they took all that and they made it as sort of like the recipe for something that has to happen in order to say or to maintain
the order
of the world.
Yeah.
That if this doesn't happen, like all these ridiculous things that happen in horror films, they have to happen in this way and this order, and the reason why this one always survives at the end, it has to be this way. She has to be the last one to live and everybody else has to die. And even the whole like growing up, it was always like the thing you don't do in horror films, you don't have sex, you don't be a drug addict, you don't be a bully or anything. And those are like all important aspects of this ritual that is maintaining the peace of the world,
of order.
Because if it doesn't happen, guess what? Something really, really, really horrible is happening.
So yes, and the tropes here are the whore, the athlete, the brain,
scholar,
the fool, and then the virgin.
Yeah.
It's horror, but it's also comedic. There's a lot of comedic elements in this. This was written by the director and Joss Whedon, and this was actually this director's directorial debut. Did I even say that word right?
Oh, really?
So this is his actual first movie, and I think he knocks it out of the park. He maintains... Well, the script is strong. I think when you have great writing like that, you can basically make a good picture. And I think the bones of this, the elements of horror combined with the comedy, combined with just really strong performances. Richard Jenkins / Bradley Whitford characters are amazing in this.
They were fantastic.
Fantastic.
They really put a sort of mundane spin on some sort of bizarre thing, because in the beginning you don't really know
what's going on.
There, it just looks like 2 guys working at an office. They're wearing ties and white shirts with short sleeves, and
name tags and
I'm Richard Jenkins. I love Richard Jenkins
because
he plays that sort of like weary, kind of guy, and Bradley Whitford with the smart ass snark about him, and just the fact that these guys, they understand what's going on. They understand it's horrible, but in order to live or to do this terrible job that they have to do, they realize, hey, we have to have some kind of fun with this, or else we will
completely lose our minds. Yeah,
and
because at the crux of it, it's horrible. I mean, 4 people have to be sacrificed in these rituals.
At least 4 have
to die. At least 4 have to die,
or
possibly a 5th.
Yeah.
But and I think they're not young, obviously, and they've probably been doing this for a while. So
you can tell that these are the weathered veterans, and you see that contrast when they introduce the guard that's sort of like the security guard that's with them. This is like his first time doing this, and while he plays the part with this sort of like stoic resolve about him, you could see that he is like this is wrong. This
right.
There's sick stuff going on here, but it has to be done.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. You can't really even... What these people are doing is horrible.
Yes.
But it has to be done.
Right, because the balance of the planet depends on these 4 sacrifices.
Yeah, I remember there's a couple of stories out there where it follows that sort of thing, that in order to have this, in order for everybody to live in peace, sacrifices must be made, and sometimes those sacrifices are unwilling
or horrific and or horrific.
Yeah, and that was another aspect of it. It wasn't just a matter of killing them; they had to suffer.
Right,
and that was part of the ritual.
Yeah.
So it was, this film is so crazy and
But so good, so
good,
good. Just
absolutely.
the layers of it, the lore behind it, the way that they explain, like you said, like the tropes in like these horror movies, like these things have to happen. It's almost like this is like the blueprint behind every horror movie you've ever seen, every death that's ever happened. This is why it's happened.
And it's almost like you could say that all the horror films that you have ever seen live in this universe.
Yes. Yeah.
Like as though like there's an expanded universe of every single horror film and they all live in this universe.
Absolutely, because that place in the underground had, well, even prior to that, when in the beginning they're kind of trying to do like a betting pool of which monsters are going to actually ultimately be coming, right? So it's like you have your ghosts, you have your crazy serial killers, you've got your zombies, you've got your mermen, you've got...
There was even some sort of like robot killing machine, which is buzzsaw blade.
Yeah,
it was it was just the smorgasbord of every horror film. There was like Cenobites from Hellraiser and giant vampire bats and werewolves and
just a little bit of everything.
Every flavor of zombie you could possibly imagine. Just weird people with masks walking around and calmly slaughtering people.
And kudos to like I guess the art directors, because they created this universe. Like when they ultimately go down in the elevator and they're looking at all these monsters and that little kid ballerina turns around, I was like, that is the stuff of nightmares. That is like something that Guillermo del Toro would have come up with, right? And it was like when I was watching this,
and even another sort of Guillermo del Toro-ish thing was the basement.
Yes,
because it was just the basement. The basement was filled with all the triggers for these monsters, and whichever one they had, like that was part of the ritual. They had to choose which monster would come get them, and not knowingly, obviously.
Yeah.
And there was just a little ballerina box and a weird, instead of a cube like from Hellraiser, it was like a ball.
It was like an Easter egg kind of that moved around like a puzzle.
Conch shell, various other items, like some sort of necklace from a wedding dress. I wonder what that one triggered.
Yeah, and it's interesting because when you were saying before about how these rituals needed to be performed in order to maintain this order, as I'm watching that, I was thinking about Midsommar, which is another really great movie, and how from the beginning, from where you start to ultimately where you wind up, it's hella ride. It's crazy. And these things, I guess, have to happen to maintain that order.
Yeah.
And I mean, sometimes it's willing, sometimes it's unwilling. And they just created such a great little universe, right? I mean, it was amazing.
Yeah, it was brilliantly done.
Brilliantly done. Nobody's wasted. This is not a long movie. It's only an hour and a half, an hour and 35 minutes. I think it said on the card in the beginning.
Yeah.
It's currently streaming on
Amazon and
Prime and Hulu. So I highly recommend this movie. I think just really amazing type writing, and that's
the writing was top notch. Even like the little, I mean, it's Joss Whedon's sort of writing sensibility. Yeah. There's a lot of callbacks to previous lines. Very well done.
And again, that you have your jump scares.
You have your jump
scares, but you have an
horror. Equal amount of comedy, which is nice because it's not like a straight horror movie. Well, there's breaks in the action.
I don't want to use the word comedy. I would say humor.
Comedic humor. Okay.
Because when you start saying horror comedy, you start veering into like killer clowns or goofy things that have goofy aspects to it.
This was not that.
This had no goofy aspects. It was just sharp writing, people speaking in ways that you were like that brought a chuckle to you, that would sort of break the tension of it, and like those points were mainly in the underground, the base that Bradley Whitford and Richard Jenkins worked in, and the dialogue between them was very snappy or whatever, but it would still veer back into the serious, like especially when they were explaining to the security guard whose name escapes me.
Truman.
I wish Truman.
Yeah.
Well, do you know who played him?
An actor named Brian White.
I've seen him in other things. When they were speaking to him, you could see that we may joke, but this is deadly serious.
Right.
So I wouldn't put comedy into this movie. It's still horror. It's fun. It has humor. The humor is very well placed. I mean, that's the mark of some sharp writing. When you could maintain this level of tension and mystery and horror and still get a couple of quick jabs in there, little bits of quick humor. Yeah, I like this film a lot.
Yeah, I highly recommend it. I think, from beginning to end, it doesn't let up. It keeps a certain pace. I never found my mind wandering. I got into it enough that there were the jump scares and I actually jumped too.
Yeah.
So, and I've seen this before and it's still as fresh and as funny and as impactful as it was the first time I'd seen it.
And everybody does a great job.
Everybody's
performance is really well done. Chris Hemsworth.
Kristen Connolly, who plays Data.
She's the sort of final girl.
Marty's played by Fran Kranz, who I think who I think Josh Whedon's used in other stuff.
He's like a regular for that guy. He's used him in a bunch of stuff.
Anna Hutchinson is Jules. Jesse Williams was the Holden character, the brain. So yeah, I mean they're top to bottom, and Sigourney Weaver has a small bit in this.
Basically a cameo and she's
always fantastic.
And they make you care about the characters. The characters are well written enough where you like them all, and you're just oh my god, you're upset when they die.
Yeah.
Even the people in the bunker.
Yes. And that was interesting too, because like you had mentioned prior, like this movie starts off one way and it just completely does like this crazy 360, and that scene where kind of all hell is unleashed is pretty intense. Yeah. And the other funny thing was, I think the first time we'd seen this movie, when we were watching it, I remember thinking, for some reason, I don't know why, but in the very beginning, like you were saying, you just don't know what's going on. I thought that those two scenes were independent of each other. It's not until they mention stuff in the story that you kind of tie it all together, and this reveal about how these things need to happen. And then at the end, when Sigourney Weaver kind of explains it exactly what's going on, how the ancients need these sacrifices and all these other places have failed the test.
Yeah, that was another thing in the story, was that this sort of ritual was happening all over the planet. So you get like a couple of glimpses, mainly from like the Japanese one, and they're doing the Japanese horror tropes of the ghost girl with the long black hair and the little Japanese schoolgirls. And I wonder what that ritual had to be, because there wasn't a jock and a virgin in that one. It was just
little kids in a schoolroom, which was pretty scary.
Some sort of like.
But they figured out to do the Kumbaya, sing that song, and turn Samara too into like a little frog.
Yeah. And then they showed like just brief clips of like other countries, but you didn't really see a lot, but you could see that it had unleashed. Something had failed in those countries.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering what the other cultures' versions of classic slasher American horror is,
or maybe not even American, whatever's indigenous to their own country.
Yeah,
I guess.
That's what I mean.
Yeah,
like what their cultural version of that is.
Yeah.
For America, it's the whore and the jock and the whatever.
The brain. The
brain.
fool.
What's it like in
the virgin?
I think Buenos Aires was one of them, or something. Yes,
yes. Spain.
Yes.
Tokyo. I can't remember the other countries, but still, yeah. Kudos. It's just really stellar writing, very fun, very original script. I mean, this could have technically been another silly horror movie, but it's not. It's very well thought out. It's very well done. Again, the script is golden. I'm always impressed with people that write so creatively, because I've always been of the belief that it starts in the story. If you don't have a good story, you have nothing. And again, I've made this argument that if you have a strong script, even if you don't have the budget to make a good looking movie, you can still make a great movie. I mean, that's obviously not the case here. Everything just worked perfectly. But I'm sure you'll agree with me. We've seen pretty movies that were just dud stories that just, oh, that's pretty, but it was just a waste of time because the story just wasn't compelling enough to
Jupiter
keep you.
Ascending.
Yes. Oh my God, I couldn't.
Lovely, gorgeous movie, but
Gorgeous movie, but I still scratch my head over that one. Yeah, that's like, yes, that's actually a perfect example of that. But scale of 1 to 10, what would you give this movie?
I give this thing like an 8.5.
Get out of my head. I was just gonna say 8.5 was my score in my head. This is almost a perfect movie.
This score's pretty high.
Yeah, it just really compelling stuff. Fantastic acting, such a strong script, very creative storytelling here. Great art direction, great effects. Whoever did the design work for the monsters, that scene where they all start coming out of the elevator banks is just freaking amazing. Yeah, just, and it keeps going on and on because first crew gets taken out, and then like the next crew comes in and the doors open again, and yeah, you see more of that. So yeah, I'm always blown away when I see movies like this that just really tie nicely. And again, not a long movie, an hour and 35 minutes.
No, it's nice.
That's 95
nice
minutes. Nice tight script.
Don't waste any time. They got right to it.
Nobody's wasted.
Enough to know the characters and feel comfortable and like the characters, so that when the killing starts, you're just like, oh no.
Exactly. And that too is part of like the horror watching experience, right? To be invested in the characters so that when the bad stuff does happen, you're upset. You know, you're taken aback. You're upset or angry or whatever it is. When films elicit an emotion, that's a great thing, whether it's fear or sadness or happiness. Those are the best stories, the ones that really, really resonate with you. So, I feel like there's really not much to say here. I mean, again, it's an almost perfect movie. Fantastic horror selection. If you haven't seen it, go see it now. It's currently streaming on Hulu and Prime, you said?
Hulu and Prime, yeah.
Hulu and Prime. Get your horror movie fix. Fantastic. And that's it from us. And we will come back with another review very soon. Good night.
Good night.